Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Soul Stories with Kate Ingersoll Mazeris, and happy Aries season. The new zodiacal year begins this year on March 20th. Most years it's March 21st, but this year our zodiacal new year has just begun. So happy New Year if you're celebrating. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, and its main theme is I seek myself. So if you've been watching my other Soul Stories videos, you'll see things like I seek myself through what I create, or I seek myself through what I integrate. Aries is very simple. As the first sign of the zodiac, what is being sought is the self. And the words myself are separated because we're not just talking about ourselves as human beings. We're talking about who am I as a spiritual being. And Aries energy is all about who am I. So if you were born between March 20th, 21st through April 20th, your sun sign is Aries. But you might have a moon sign in Aries or a Mercury. A lot of my girlfriends right now, we talk about things that are going on in their lives. I look at their chart and they have a Chiron in Aries. Chiron has been in Aries for quite some time. So you don't have to have a sun sign in Aries to find this video meaningful. You might want to take a look in your chart and see which house does Aries affect. For me, it's the 10th house. So the energy that I'm going to be talking about today is what in my career house or where I'm seen in the world, how does this energy affect that? So let's take a look. As we look at the bottom right-hand corner, you can see this glyph. It looks like the horns of a ram because obviously the symbol for Aries is the ram. But as we look at the next slide, it also means some other things. So let's take a look. Aries is the ram. It is a cardinal fire sign. The cardinal signs are always the first sign of every season. So Aries is the first sign of spring, and it is a fire sign. I think it's fascinating when you think about it, like the Big Bang theory. Energy or creation has to start with combustion, with some ignition. And so here comes the ram, cardinal fire. All fire and air signs are masculine, so of course this is a masculine sign, and it's ruled by the planet of Mars. And as I'm recording this, you can hear these jets zooming overhead. How very Aryan. You may not be able to hear that, but I live in an area where sometimes the military jets will zoom overhead. So Aryan, that's so perfect. But anyway, let's take a look. If you look at this glyph, this is the shadow of Aries. A lot of times in mundane astrology, they'll talk about Aries being very selfish because they put themselves first. The reason for that is because in the shadow of Aries, Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, so they're considered to be the leader, of course. But if a leader doesn't turn around and look at the people that they are leading, they are going to be selfish because they will think that I'm the leader, where I'm looking or going is the right way, and not taking into consideration other people that they're working with. Healthy leaders turn around, they see what they're working with, they see the qualities of the people they're leading, and they know how to harness that energy to create momentum. So let's take a look at these bullet points. The glyph that I showed you on the first slide, it represents the ram's horns, but it also represents the eyebrows and the nose, because in the physical body, the Aries is represented by the head, by the face. But it also represents the fountain of life, that creative life force energy. Aries, of course, takes place at the beginning of the zodiacal year. On the equinox, the spring equinox, the sun is in balance. So we have equal day, equal night, but the sun is increasing. This is the very beginning of the light half of the zodiacal year. And contrary to what a lot of people think, the light half of the year is not better than the dark. And the dark half of the year is not better than the light. It's just different. It's just different energy. So this is the time of year when animals wake up. Plants are full of life force stored in winter. They're not at their fullest life force, but they're full of that spark because they have to ignite and grow. So Aries energy provides the confidence to urge others to engage, to explore, and to assert. And that can be for good or bad. Like if you don't think things through before you act, you can be impulsive and make a mistake. Sometimes people will say, well, mistakes are just learning experiences. Okay, but sometimes you have to look before you leap. Aries energy can be self-oriented and socially unsophisticated. Like sometimes, Aries energy will say, well, I'm different from the rest of humanity because I was born first or I'm here first and nobody understands me. So a lot of times too, if I step way back and I look at someone who has a lot of Aries in their chart, I think that this person has a soul that really needs to go back to basics of who am I? And not defined through interaction with others necessarily. That would be more Libra, and we'll talk about those polarities after I get through all the 12 zodiacal signs. Aries is about who am I? And sometimes through that exploration of who am I, you have to be more self-focused. Some people, especially Aryan women, will say, well, that's selfish. I don't want to be selfish. And I said, there's a difference between being self-focused to know who you are authentically, than being selfish and saying, well, I'm right and I have to have what I want to the detriment of you, even if I don't care. Like I don't care if you don't get yours, I'll get mine. Like I have a neighbor once who said to me, she says, I finally come to understand I'm the kind of person who has to get what I need first. And if you get what you need, that's fine, but that's not my agenda. That's selfish. That's not self-focused. So Aries can be a little interesting that way. The archetypes of Aries would be the pioneer, like a pioneer spirit. We need Aries energy to have the guts and the courageousness and the charisma to explore things that haven't been explored before. The warrior to get in there and fight the good fight when necessary. But warriors also know when not to fight. I think the hallmark of a wonderful warrior energy is to know when to engage, but when to wait. The Aries energy can be the hero. In its shadow, it's the bitch or the egotist. And I'm not talking about assertive women. In our culture, if a woman is assertive like a man is assertive, she's considered a bitch. That is not what I'm talking about. That's the shadow of this energy. Because men can be bitches too, and bitchy. Bitchy is kind of like, I'm going to assert my power over you so that I can have control over you. I'm going to assert my power, like bullying. I can assert my power over you because if I don't get what I want, then I don't want to be in a relationship with you. It's like to keep things out of control. I was watching a documentary about the manosphere and I had to turn it off because the men in this documentary that were being interviewed were being so bitchy about the way they wanted to dominate their world. That is deeply the shadow of Aries. The egotist is different in Aries than it is in Leo. And when I get to Leo later on this summer, you'll understand the difference. Aries energy can be egotist because in reality, they don't know who they are. And if you know who you are, if you have a healthy ego, if you have a healthy identity, and sometimes that can be hard won, but if you have a healthy identity and a healthy human ego, you don't have to take power from somebody else or let them take power from you. But if you don't know who you are, if you're not allowed to express who you are, if you know who you are, but your environment won't let you express it, sometimes that can shift into egotism because you're still trying to figure out how can I be in this world rather than who can I be in this world. It's very fascinating. I think this energy is very interesting. So the soul journey of an Aries is to be willing to discover the true identity and express the life force energy in new experiences. Notice the word true. So Aries wants to find the true identity. When we get to Leo later, they get to shine authentically. But you have to know who you are before you can shine authentically. If you look at where Aries is in your chart, whether you have any planets there or not, these are the areas of your life where you're learning your true identity. So, for example, I was telling you that Aries energy is in my 10th house, and this has been where I am in the world. Some people would call it the career house, or it's like where I am most visibly. And for me, it's about work. And I was saying to my mother recently that, every single job that I have ever had out in the world has been a misery. Even when I was teaching, I loved the children, I loved the idea of teaching, but that job became a misery because I wasn't allowed to express myself with my true identity. And every time I've gone out in the world to work for others, I've had to compartmentalize parts of who I am because it wasn't safe. I'm working on a book of essays right now where I talk about wearing armor that held in my true identity because it wasn't safe to be who I really was. It would cost me money or cost me, something it would cost me, and I wasn't willing to pay it. Well, now I'm living in a creative field and I know who my true identity is in the creative field. And so I'm practicing working on it. These videos are part of that Aryan energy. My true identity in teaching is more authentic doing this than it was in the classroom. And I love this quote. Robert Ingersoll is not related to my family, but I wish he was, when he said, "We rise by lifting others." When you know who you really are in that Aryan energy of your chart, and you can harness that true identity just by being yourself, you help others and then you rise even more. It's fascinating. I love that idea. Now, Aries is the most masculine of all signs. So if you're a woman who's in Aries, this can be a challenge for you, and especially in this culture. Um, this represents the resurrection of life because think about it. Easter takes place always during the season of Aries, always. And it's when life is resurrected. So Aries energy can represent that part of our chart where we have become reborn again and again and again. It is absolutely true for me in the way that I engage with the world. I have resurrected. I've come out of the world and I've come back into my home and stayed here and reinvented my life and then went out into the world and come back. Very fascinating. Aries contains all of the latent life force from the previous year and gives birth through it. Not to it, but through it. So some astrologers will say, people say that the zodiacal year begins in Aries. It does, but the energy of it begins in Pisces because that's where that latent life force is. And then here comes Aries, and it takes that energy and moves through it to give it birth and impetus. It's wonderful. Aries energy rules your head, your brain, your eyes, and it is more instinct than intellectual. And that's why Aries energy will need to slow down and match the pace of life because an instinct is different than thinking things through. I watch my animals when they have instincts and they act immediately. Like they don't think, they hiss, they growl, their back arches or whatever, because instinctively they're reacting. And Aries has a tendency to react rather than respond. And so a mature Aries learns, let me think this through. I will act. I have to act. Aries energy has to act. But how it acts is more mature than just doing something. Aries energy can sometimes feel restless and it needs constant excitement because it's easily bored. In its shadow, Aries energy will create drama or leave a situation, but they'll do it over and over and over again until they learn, I need to have compassion for these life circumstances. I need to understand where I'm causing the problem in my life. I need to understand how I'm engaging in the world in this way that continues to create this pattern? Where have I leapt before I looked? Where can I step back and say, I have lots of different choices in what I do. Where's the best placement for this energy? And so when Aries balances itself with others, that's where that energy begins to become more clear. Because the ultimate aim in Aries is to seed things, like literally in a garden. We're planting seeds. I plant seeds more in Taurus season, but if you live in the area of the country where it's warmer, you're literally planting seeds. In your life, seeds can mean very different things. It could be planting ideas. It could be planting the impetus for someone to help themselves. Like my husband worked with AA, for many years before he died. And he always liked to use the adage of teaching someone how to fish. Because if he taught them how to fish, they'd eat for a lifetime. If he would seed that energy into them, they would take it and grow it themselves. And that is the ultimate aim of Aries. Can I spark you? Can I spark you to want to continue your own growth? And so for me, having Aries in my 10th house, I'm always interested in sparking you all as you read read my articles, my blogs, listen to my videos, that they spark conversations for you. Take this energy into your own life, apply it to your own self, and see where it can take you. So for all of you who have Aries energy, it's significantly in planets or placements, happy birthday. We're so glad you were born and you're here. Thank you for lifting us up and to create this impetus for change. There's a lot going on in Aries energy right now on Saturday. Check the transits. We are going to have a superstellium in Aries, sun, moon, all kinds of energy. It's going to be a fascinating springtime. So have a great day, everybody. Share this video with anyone who would enjoy it. And I'll see you at our next soul story when we talk about the archetype of Taurus. Have a great day.